The Little Bighorn Battlefield in Montana. Now, the purpose of this video isn't to explain again the story, because that is very well known. In fact, if you're watching this, you perhaps know the story better than I do. It's really just to give you a look at various places on the battlefield if you've not had the opportunity to yet visit, to give you a feel of what's available to see, to give you my impressions and other information like where I stayed when I visited the site. The markers on the battlefield, which are numerous and spread out, are where the original bodies were found and then buried originally, and then they were removed and placed under this large memorial at the top of Last Stand Hill. And they placed a marker, a white marker, in the original location. So where you see the marker, that's where the soldiers were originally found. And it is an extensive area. This is Last Stand Hill, where Custer, of course, was, where he met his end. But the actual area itself is quite extensive. We were there quite a few hours, but if you were really studying this, you could spend probably a couple of days, I would think, in this location, really seeing everything. They've also, I think, in recent years added a memorial to the Native American warriors, which we'll be viewing. I stayed in Wyoming at a small town of Sheridan, and that was a sort of hour and 20 minutes drive to here. And the reason I stayed at Sheridan was I wanted to visit the Fetterman battlefield, the wagon box and the fort, and they're all videos I've previously posted. Certainly this site was far busier than those previous ones I've mentioned. Far more people come to this because obviously it's internationally well known. I think they get over, I think he mentioned 460,000 visitors a year from all over the world. And of course Custer is a very well-known name, and through the movies, etc., a well-known story. And when you're here, it is yet again another sort of beautiful location. You see these markers spread out all over the battlefields. I found perhaps the most moving spot was what's called Deep Ravine. That's a view of the visitor centre there, and then you can walk down Deep Ravine Trail. It's not very far. Along the way, again, there are isolated markers where obviously individual soldiers were cut off and killed. And at Deep Ravine is where a number of the cavalrymen were caught in the ravine with the Native Americans on both sides shooting down at them. And although there are lots of visitors here, I managed to get a short time where basically I was on my own at that spot, because as you can see from the clouds, the rain came down intermittently. One moment it was sunny, the next moment it was actually pouring down with rain. So people sort of were retreating back from the isolated places, and that's why when I went down to the Deep Ravine site, there wasn't anybody there. Again, it's been a location I'd always wanted to visit in my life, and the opportunity came up, and together with the other historic sites like Fetterman, yeah, it's well worth making the trip. If you're coming from outside the US, obviously it's a long trip, but it's well worth it when you get here, and I don't think you'd be disappointed by what you find. Lots of signposts like this giving you the story. Here we are at Deep Ravine. so you can follow the self-guided tour in a way. But there are also organised tours that you can take. I think there's like a little bus which I think is manned by members of the Crow tribe. So you can take an organised tour, or you can just walk to some locations like this. And then the other locations, which are still part of the main area, the main battlefield, you need to drive. Like when you go and visit where Reno and Benteen were located. It's not a long drive, but it's a short drive to go to see those sites. So again, other parts of the battlefield which you might be more familiar with than me. It's something I need to read up again. Brought some books back from the visitor centre where they're selling obviously books on the battle, other merchandise. That's where the Rangers give talks, and they're interesting. The guy we had was very good. He'd obviously done it a lot of times, but he made it interesting. That's looking back towards Last Stand Hill there. And they've added markers for the Native Americans that were killed during this battle. I think this is certainly a battle where the US cavalry's casualties far outnumbered the Native Americans. I'm not sure if anybody actually really knows those numbers. Beautiful spot to visit in Montana, especially on the day I visited early June with the storm clouds and the atmospheric feel of a battlefield. Because I was visiting in early June, so a similar sort of time of the year when the actual battle took place. Showing where the Native Americans, the encampment was that Custer was attempting to attack. Obviously, as we all know, that plan didn't quite work out, and you're probably greatly surprised just by the amount of warriors that were assembled to come out to meet the cavalry. I mean, one of the feelings I got from this was that, and again, as I say, I'm not an expert at all. In fact, I need to read far more up about this battle than I know. But the feeling you get is how his forces were spread out all over different locations, with himself in one place and Reno and Benteen in other locations, and you do wonder if he kept his command totally together with the firepower that they would then have had at their disposal. Whether the outcome would have been different, I don't know. It's just a speculation, isn't it? But certainly you get the feel as though the US cavalry was spread out all over a wide area, and therefore as individual units, the Native Americans were able to take them on, and as we know in Custer's case, annihilate him. Although obviously Reno and Benteen were able to hold out until they had the relief come. So again, these signs are all over the battlefield. Certainly, again, I hadn't really done this, if I'm being honest, but it would certainly pay to have perhaps read up more on this before I come to really understand all the various locations. I got a broad outline, like probably most people watching my video had got, of what had happened, but not in that greater detail. So if you are planning to come here, I guess if you're an enthusiast, you'll do that anyway. It would obviously be worth a bit of prior research, more than I perhaps did. Now I need to perhaps do it in the opposite way. I mean, I had read of this story over many years and seen the films, but I think the last one I saw, which was very good, was Son of the Morning Star, which I thought was an excellent interpretation of what had happened here. But again, that's quite a few years ago now, so I need to brush up on the events and read the books. But it certainly didn't disappoint. It was certainly a trip that I enjoyed thoroughly, including the other sites of Fetterman and the Wagon Box. All great locations to visit if you get the opportunity. So I hope you enjoyed my videos of my trip to the US, if you've watched all of them. And to everybody out there, take care out there.